Hello, the channel. Welcome back, guys. Hope everybody's well. Hope everyone's SO5's going well. Wee bit of a quiet spell coming up in terms of the summer. So this is just a quick introduction to what we're going to do here on the video. Thanks very much to Jack P. Sorare. So it was his suggestion in connection with doing some advanced lineup builders for Euro picks. So what I'm going to do is go through from unique, super rare, rare and limited level, and pick out teams from obviously my own gallery. And what I'll do is I'll also have a chat about general SO5 transfer market, some sort of strategies surrounding that as well, or any positions maybe that I might want to strengthen, or any other interesting moves. Obviously, that's going to be a bit of a marathon. I did think about doing some different sort of sectors in terms of doing different parts, but I think it'll be quite interesting for people as well, because if you might be thinking about moving up or down or between scarcities or to pro or whatever, then might be quite interesting to see what the differences might be between those different scarcities. What I'm also going to be doing in terms of content soon is this week, obviously there's like nothing on, like, you know, I've got a lot of cards, obviously far too many cards, and literally can't really get a lineup out this week. So I'm going to do some other content, might have a wee look at things like collections, maybe some tips of players to buy under £20. So I'll come back to that, obviously, in terms of other videos. The other thing I've been doing here is, you'll see I've got my, you can't see it, my fancy tombola here, which is also doubles as a breakfast dish. So in the last video on Friday night, promised that we'd give away a couple of cards. So we've got a limited Ramazani and a limited Yamazaki. Also given away to UNC Trades Laszlo Benez. So we're giving away 3 cards. Ewan was the first guy to comment, so he's getting Benez, and then we'll do a draw for the other 2. So in the bowl, we'll do a Rod Stewart here. Get on, we're drunk. Not actually, it's Sunday morning. Right, so first one out is, can you see that? Daniel I can't even understand my own handwriting. I think it's Daniel Brabaker. I'll double check and I'll make sure I send send it to the right person. So you're getting Ramazani. So I'll put you to the side. Here we go. Big Rob Stewart drunk. Oh. And the next one, Yamazaki, has been won by WYLX84. So congratulations, guys, on the cards. I'll have those over to you just when the video's put out. That's the end of the introduction, so we're going to go into it and start talking about, firstly, unique, quick introduction again to the overall gallery, then we'll go from there. Right, let's get into it, guys. Excited for the new season coming back, to be honest. As I said in the intro there, so kind of a quiet spell for the next couple of weeks, but loads of good stuff coming back in terms of the European season, etc. So firstly, quick introduction to the channel, or the channel and obviously my gallery. Scottish Whale 1888, that's not always been my name, more commonly known as McPridace. I will likely be changing that back. You can only change it every 3 months on Sorare, so I will likely be changing that back. Some people refer to me as a whale. You'll see there I have 1,237 limited cards, 617 rares, 183 super rares, and 8 uniques. General roster valuation is around about 139th or £191,000. If you meet my wife soon, don't tell her that, or you're dead. I've had 794 card wins on Sorare, which is pretty epic in 3 years, and something I'd never really ever even dreamed would have happened. And reward winning lineups 18%, so you will see some guys with higher percentages in terms of reward winning lineups, but I'm a maniac and I like to play everything, and I'm a hoarder, so I probably will need to cut that down at some point. You'll see collections wise here, top collections are Celtic, Boca Juniors and Man City. So just got the Man City limited one completed there, which was nice, and Boca's a full collection as well. So moving on to uniques, I'm going to go through and talk about uniques, then super rare, rare and limited, and talk about some of the different divisions. So it's going to be quite a long video, but hopefully with it being a bit quieter just now, there'll be some useful content. Also, if at some point the screen changes and my big ugly mug goes out of the bottom right hand corner, it's because my camera is playing up today, and this is the 5th time I've tried to do this. Every so often it just freezes. So there we go. People know me well. You know I'm a bit of a technophobe, being slagged off for not being able to take screenshots, etc. So there we go. So onto the uniques. This is my sort of current, or these are my current holdings. So Philmax, 3 Ethereum, over a year ago. I think it was longer than that actually, probably nearly 2 years ago. Obviously a lot of money to spend at that point. Sorare was booming. I wanted to get a unique. I think somebody was selling up, and seems like a mad amount of money, but obviously Ethereum price was a lot higher at that point, or well, it was, it was about over £2,000 obviously in conversion, and it's not really worked out that well. So a few injuries, not great form at PSV as well. Kyoko Furuhashi obviously is a good Celtic fan. This was the next one after being traumatised by Philmax that I decided to take the plunge on, and that was a trade. So I exchanged him for a good few rare cards, etc. And never really regretted that. Love the wee man, obviously. Matt O'Reilly, again, this was a big purchase round about that time. So obviously I had a bit of a strategy of I wanted to make sure I moved into the unique level as the prices had come down a wee bit more and were in the real world, but still pretty mad, obviously, as you can see with prices. Come back to Matt in a wee minute. Nico Serrano, still a relatively big purchase, but forward, only 19, highly thought of. Was out on loan. The guy had bought him for a few thousand and then sort of dumped him, which I think is a stupid move, really. So I took advantage of that. Greg Taylor, 2.5F, or a good amount of cash. Again, I was wanting an all-star unique type team, and took the plunge. Wouldn't be talking about Celtic without having a Larsson in, right? Jordan Larsson, not just bought because of the Celtic connection, previous good scorer for Spartak, and was on loan at Copenhagen, and then was getting into the team, and then I think they had like an option or an obligation to buy, and I decided based on price it was a good buy. Andy Robertson was the fruit of the strategy. So on the mad last weekend of the season, Celtic had been rotating a lot, took the decision to go strong, went into All-Star Unique, and bang, Celtic won 5-0. Joe Hart clean sheet, Starfelt scored. Matt O'Reilly had a good base, but took the corner for Starfelt scoring. Furuhashi scored 2 goals, and I think the other person was Greg Taylor, who also got the assist to Furuhashi for one of the goals. So I won Andy Robertson unique, which is probably worth about £7,000 to £10,000. Courtois super rare, which is worth 3,000 or 4,000, and a good chunk of Ethereum as well. So that was absolutely magic, and that's really made my experience. I'm really buoyed to keep trying to move up and take on all the big boys and the sickos. Eo Tanaka was an interesting pickup. Guy who played with Matoma and Rio Hatate at Frontale. They absolutely destroyed everyone. They were so annoying in terms of SO5 at that point. I don't think I had many of them, but that's why they were annoying. And yeah, that's my current lot in terms of the unique side. So what we're going to do is go into the lineup builder, and we're going to have a look at what might be available. So I'm going to put the lineup builder forward to around about mid-August here. So it's obviously a wee bit ahead, and then we can see what we've got available. The first thing to point out here, connection with the All-Star Unique division, is that there'll be a difference if you're sort of at Super Rare and thinking about moving up in terms of who you can play. So with the cap competitions, cap 220 unique, I think you can use a Super Rare goalkeeper. 240 and 270, you need 5 uniques. All-Star Unique was quite attractive to me because you can pick basically you can pick 2 super rares. So I'm on the wrong week. Back to being a technophobe here, guys. Do apologise. Yeah, so you can pick 2 super rare cards in there as well, and I did have 2 super rare cards in there when I won the All-Star Unique, so that is interesting. So in connection with my ideal sort of lineup here, obviously I do have a good pick of super rare goalkeepers. I don't own a unique goalkeeper just now, so if that's something that I might be aiming for, then obviously I'd like to add somebody in from that point of view. We'll go with a theme so far, because obviously I will be picking a lot of Celtic players here, so Joe Hart will be an obvious selection in here. When we get into the defender side of things, obviously I don't have a huge amount of choice here. Now, the one thing to point out here is, well, obviously for this particular game week, Andy Robertson's got Chelsea away, which, you know, Liverpool probably have easier games than that. Celtic against Aberdeen, so again I'll probably go with Greg Taylor just as a rough draft just now. To be careful on this, Celtic do have a significant amount of money to spend, and there's talk of maybe some defenders coming in, so, you know, if he starts seasoning him and Bernabei are the options, he'd be the clear left back for me. Into midfield, so we've now started to get some nice options here. Obviously, guys like Orkin Kokcu who have moved to Benfica, and I'll come back to him when we're working on the super rare side of things and going through some different options there. Another interesting option will be Branko van de Boomen as well, who's obviously moved to Ajax. Again, in terms of optimising this, I can only put in 2 super rares, so Matt O'Reilly is going to be a key guy to put in there. I don't have a super rare Matt O'Reilly, so I'll talk about him a wee bit for a minute. He's on sets at Celtic. He did lose a bit of game time with Aaron Moy. Celtic have now brought in some other guys, young guy home from Valerenga. We do have good amount of midfielders, but he is a key player for Celtic. I like his recent comments after the managers come in, and I think that he will definitely be a key player under Brendan Rodgers. Hope I'm not wrong. You see that purchase price, but again, if you're going to spend a lot of money on a unique or whatever, buying somebody who's in their early 20s gives you time, right? Into the forward selections, so Cezinha is a great option. I love that card, just really love having him in general. We've got some other nice options here as well, but nobody really as good as likes of Cezinha, and obviously, as I said, we've got Jordan Larsson unique, so that's an interesting one. If I'm rolling out the old Celtic stack in here, then the likelihood is it's going to be Furuhashi, you know, and then that leaves that extra place to have a go at. So in the extra place, obviously now I can put in a unique, or I can put in somebody strong from a super rare point of view. So for example, I might, if I decide it's a good defensive game, I might fire in Carter Vickers, who scores really well, or I might decide that I want to go with the unique bonus and then put in somebody like Jordan Larsson. So, you know, I've got some options there, and obviously I'm pleased with that. I'm going to just put in Boomin anyway, because I'm going to be talking about him. So just as a highlight, I'm going to talk about him. And captain-wise, obviously you can captain a unique, so that's pretty sweet. So those are some nice options. I love being involved in All-Star Unique. It's not easy. You're playing against guys that come out and just spend £30,000 and £40,000 on top uniques and stuff. It is bloody hard. There's no two ways about it. But to win it on the third go, the third time I'd ever entered to win that division, was unbelievable. One of the best moments in my Sorare career, without a doubt, if not the best moment. But yeah, just awesome. So that covers off everything I want to say, I think, about All-Star Unique. And I think, given the different options we have, we'll spend a bit more time on super rare and limited options. Okay, so what we're going to do next is move into super rares. Now, again, I'm quite lucky in that I own a good amount of super rares, 183. That's better than a good amount, to be honest. So very, very fortunate, obviously. What I'm going to do here is, just out of interest, just change them to the highest average scoring super rares, and then we'll get into maybe some overall selections. So there's a couple of outliers here. Obviously, Lincoln, and Lincoln's injured at the moment. Fabian De Kaiser really hasn't played many games and is just up there because he had a good score, and sorry, I'll take that as the last 15. Meluso and Cezinha aren't really Euro options. Cameron Carter Vickers will feature quite a lot. Riku Puig again isn't a European option, but we'll be looking, I think, at under 23s. Alvaro Madran's already in Saudi Arabia. Rostovski's an interesting one. He's a guy I picked up 5 months ago in the dip, and he's been really good recently as well. Koki Saito, I've held this card for a good amount of time, so it was really highly rated that Yokohama went into the City group, and then I had to hold through some pain when he was at Lommel. Hani Mukhtar, Greg Taylor we've talked about. Sugawara appearing up there, it's an interesting one. So I think AZ have signed the right back, which I don't know if it's just for cover or if they expect him to leave, but some talk of him maybe moving on. Junior Alonso, good player, is now back in Russia, so should be back soon. Big Carl Starfelt. Obviously the Celtic connection. And then we get guys here like Courtois, which was obviously brilliant in terms of the win. Orkin Cox's guy I'd like to sort of focus on a bit. This I think it's been a really interesting move, and obviously I will be using him in selections. Under 23 moved to Benfica, who were a prominent SO5 team last season. Really, really good SO5 team, and I think he'll have a good season there. Obviously, he had like set pieces and everything at his previous club at Feyenoord as well. People don't know why I'm focusing or talking about set pieces. Obviously, if you do things like take corners, etc., then you get some small points for penalty area entries. If you cross it and the guy gets a shot away, then you get things like attempted assists or key passes, etc. as well. So that just racks up points and it helps with players' overall base. If you're quite new to Sorare, base means like all around scoring, so not just like goals and assists, but adding in points for your all round play. John Stones will be an important card, I think, this season. Seems to be doing well in that new sort of midfield position for Pep. Nick Hollage, key player in terms of goalkeeper. And then we've got some other options, including Yevhen Diouf, who was a big buy, but I really rate him as a goalkeeper. So what I'm going to do first is jump into the lineup builder here, and we're going to, I think, firstly focus on under 23s. Under 23s, I think, is just one of my favourite divisions. I just love playing under 23s. Just fun. Obviously, you get yourself sort of caught up in, what are these guys going to do for the future, and could they be superstars? And obviously, a lot of the times you do get quite high prices and everything there as well. So leading option there. A lot of these guys don't play at the moment, so I do, because I'm a madman, try and keep my gallery refreshed and try and invest for the future. So super rare goalkeeper prices can go sky high, and I do tend to pick a lot of backup types, but Diouf will be the man there. In terms of defence, I've got some quite good options here as well. It's probably not my strongest division, because under 23 super rares are quite hard to come by, so probably be using some of these guys more along the lines of under 23 rare pro, where you can play 3 rares and 2 super rares. But here I've got guys like Sugawara on a high average. He could play in here. Matt O'Reilly's an interesting one, because in this division you can play a unique as well, so he gives me the option of being in with a Celtic stacks, or do I want to play strong under 23s team. We've already picked him elsewhere, so like Orkin Coxes. So again, he's really interesting. I do think he'll score well for Benfica. He may well not get set pieces, etc., but in that role where they played like Florentino Luis and guys like that in there, and the sort of 2 midfielders, that's pretty similar to where he played for Feyenoord. So we'll see how his scores stack up, but they are a really dominant SO5 team, Benfica, and the added advantage of you're not worrying about him going to Saudi Arabia. In terms of forward, again, some interesting options here. Koki Saito, mentioned a wee bit there, doing very well, and obviously I've got the forward card, which is nice as well, so he's been minted as a mid at the moment. Neni Dargeles, guys probably won't really know this guy much, but he's been out on loan from Salzburg, and now he's back, and obviously they do tend to blood these guys in. I think he'll get a chance at the start of the season as well, with Fernando out injured, so he's a sort of interesting one. Got guys here like Lyle Abada. Yusuf Badji's an interesting one, because he's now moved to Charleroi from Bruges permanently, but just based on averages, etc., and just get in Koki. And then obviously here I can put in maybe Matt O'Reilly's unique, or just put in any Dargelis. So yeah, that's sort of nuts and bolts of what I'll be run in there. I think probably a good idea rather than going through All-Star to go right into things like Challenger, because people probably, I would hope, want to see some thoughts on Celtic, etc. as well. So again, obviously a heavy Celtic focus, but once we get to some of our scarcities, we'll go away from that a wee bit. So Joe Hart, interesting one. In terms of goalkeeper, there is talk of Celtic being linked with goalkeepers. If you're buying Joe Hart, you do so at your own risk at this point, because he's out of contract at the end of the season. Although the Rodgers comments about him playing out for the back and things were along the lines of, well, actually, we don't need him to be Ederson at Man City. So it kind of almost seems to be defending him a wee bit. I don't know if it's just clever management, but the goalkeeper situation does have to be resolved at some point, in that he's out of contract next season and he's aging a bit. Rodgers might well fancy him. Maybe he'll get an extension. I don't know, but I think it's more likely could be a candidate for maybe ending his career at the Championship or maybe the MLS or something. Again, in here, I could go with a unique and put in like a Greg Taylor, and my alternative stack would be Nick College and Bart Vriens. The guys have served me really well. Nick College is really a super goalkeeper, to be honest. He was the best goalkeeper in the Eredivisie, not for just SO5 on Sorare, but he was actually voted the best goalkeeper on there. Also, I think he's interesting because there's been some talks of really not been happy at Ajax, and you wouldn't rule anything out after Dusan Tadic has left. So the manager of Ajax is the ex-Sparta manager, so that's an interesting one. Obviously, if I'm going to run a stack here, which it probably will be, then Carter Vickers is the standout option, although I can also play Karel Starfelt. Branko van den Boomen's the guy I want to talk about, just because I think he benefits from Tadic going as well. So the interesting thing with Branko is he was on like a sort of round about a 60 average in League One in France. He's moved back to Ajax. What would be the negative? Well, the negative might have been that Tadic would have been on all the set pieces and Boomen was on all the set pieces at Toulouse, so he was a kind of main man there. But he's one of these sort of strong midfielders who, wins some tackles, gets some all-around points, etc. But also he can be creative. He takes set pieces. He provides assists, that type of thing. I think this guy will be excellent at Ajax. I know people are looking at it and thinking, well, Ajax are a bit in disarray, but I think the Sparta manager is quite a good appointment. And okay, Tadic is away, but Ajax do generate a lot of money in player sales. Timber's left as well. Again, obviously a blow, but 45 million coming in. So Ajax will replace those positions. They're very clever with their buys, and if this guy's a main man, then he could reach Tadic levels basically. Forward wise, obviously not much else to say here over and above what we've been discussing, but Jordan Larsson, I do want to highlight. I mean, obviously he's now moved to Copenhagen. The only downside is he's not getting minted at the moment, so you have to buy one of his older cards, but I think he's an interesting option, connection with Challenger, etc. there as well. Tadic, obviously, if you can afford a super rare Tadic or whatever, would be pretty much one of the best options you can get. Obviously, it looks like he's going to be going to Fenerbahce, so, we're not getting rid of him in Challenger, unfortunately. Who else is good in Challenger? Well, 20 actually have been excellent last season, so they tend to be quite solid. I think depending on what happens with who they bring in now, they'll still be a really good option. They've obviously lost key guys like Zaruki, Cherny's away. There's been talk of maybe Small leaving as well. But if they've got Inner proper, they could still be pretty good. They've got quite a soft start to season fixtures wise, and also they've got some qualifiers for Europe and everything as well. And they should hopefully get into the conference, which obviously is the weakest of the European competitions and gives some utility. So if you're looking at a big buy or whatever, if you're looking at buying super rares, etc., you've got to look at loads of things like age profile. If I'm going to spend a lot of money in this guy, do I give myself time? It's not a guy who's 33 who could retire and end up being worth nothing, or go to Saudi Arabia and then, just like, basically you don't get any usage out of him for the rest of his career. So, and I was talking about 20 because obviously if you can try and focus on teams, for example, that are in Europe, then you get maximum usage. So then you've got some midweek usage and stuff as well, and as many game weeks as you possibly can. And then here, obviously, in terms of finalising the team, I can put in guys like Callum McGregor. Calmac's a guy I would tend to play a lot because captain, never really gets rotated. Just an all-round sort of good player, good scorer, average as well, and actually done a lot better under Brendan Rodgers previously, so he played a bit more attacking. So towards the end of his career, he's played a bit more withdrawn, a bit more defensive, and if he could add some goals and assists to his game, a really, really interesting option. Obviously here I could also do the defensive stack and go for Starfelt. Celtic-wise, this is an interesting one because both centre-backs are right-footed and sometimes Starfelt looks a wee bit uncomfortable there, so we need to see who Celtic bring in. I think they will be targeting a left-footed defender because I don't think Kobayashi's done terribly well. But you never know. Rodgers is a guy who likes to develop players as well, so we'll just need to keep an eye on the window. Jota's already left, which is heartbreak obviously for all us guys, but from that perspective, obviously, is what it is. He's away now. Celtic put a lot of money in. The main link at the moment is Tete formerly of Leicester, Lyon, Shakhtar Donetsk, and I think that's actually a realistic one. If we could get him in, that would really be awesome, to be honest. So super rare wise, obviously we're focusing on Europe. I don't really have good champion Euro options, so I don't think it's worth talking about that much, but it might be an area I look to sort of develop into a wee bit. Obviously, some options in here like Courtois, and I flicked off there, but obviously I've got an Oblak as well, which again was a card I won in All-Star Super Rare, fortunately. So there are some good options in there as a base. This is kind of looking like a competitive team, right? If you put in like Courtois, Andy Robertson, John Stones, some really nice options there, but I don't have a lot of strength to flesh that out in there, so best will in the world, if I would love to have a Neymar super rare or something in there, like that would be really, really awesome, but yeah, I'm kind of running out of options at that point, so not really a competition I want to focus on too much. And obviously when you come to the All-Star Super Rare, that's a tournament I really do love, so if I'm running Celtic in the Challenger, then I'll use some of these other guys to run them in the All-Star. Sometimes I'll just run Celtic in All-Star because the prizes are pretty good, right? So, you can win a sort of tier 1 super rare. In this competition, you can win a big chunk of F. Sometimes they also have like rare cards thrown in there if you win as well. So reasonably top heavy, but in the All-Star Super Rare, usually pay out like on a big weekend like 40 or 50 prizes. So even some of these guys you can pick up as a tier 3 or a tier 3 super Rare can be very, very useful. Moving on now, going down to rares or rare pros. So I'm thinking this section we'll have a look at something a wee bit different. So probably pick out an under 23 rare pro because obviously this is a tournament a lot of people do like to play under 23s in general. A lot of hype regarding good young players, and obviously we'll look at some other options here again. Keep with the theme, and just have a look through the sort of top rare cards that I have. Trent, obviously, he's going to be a key player. Unfortunately, timed out of under 23s, so be more of a champion option this season, which is still a lovely, lovely option. Douglas Santos back this weekend. Really delighted to get him back. Probably the best 32 quid I've ever spent in my life. The guy is just an absolute machine, to be honest, and a lovely option to have. Saliba, a guy I bought quite early on, somebody I rate. I think Arsenal might improve a wee bit defensively this season. They were a bit shaky towards the end of the season. Whether or not they just shat it or not, I don't know. But they had a few injuries in there, and I think they're capable of better defensively. Joey Veerman, an insane option. Obviously, if he doesn't move from PSV, then he's an excellent option. You see how much I paid for him before, but one of the leading scorers in under 23s and one of the leading scorers on the platform. Carter Vickers we talked about. Tom Hayes an interesting option. If you look, he's right up there in the averages, but he's not right up there in terms of price. So, a really solid all-round player and somebody maybe you could look to pick up to improve your team a bit. Somebody I use quite a lot. Mo Salah obviously in there as well. Jota. Let's not make me cry. We'll skip past that. Ishmael Aniba is an interesting one. So this guy was at Sochaux, averaging really high, but I don't know what's going to happen there. I think they've had some issues. Well, they have had some issues. So, I'd imagine he'll be moving on somewhere else. Alistair Johnson, Celtic, absolutely superb. Great player. You want to get the defender card. There's defender and mid cards, but you really want the defender card there. Luka Vanisic was excellent this season. Says 22 years old on the card, but he's now timed out of under 23s, I believe. So, he has, yeah, because the under 23 eligible tag's not here. But talk of him maybe going to Feyenoord and things, so watch out there for the move. Formos Mendy hasn't moved yet. A wee bit surprised about that. Amiens, I think, stayed down as well. So if he's there again, average is very high, reliable player. So somebody to watch out for. Rio Hatate, Nico Schlotterbeck. A guy's just an absolute machine. So won this card, obviously, which is very nice, but a leading option definitely in the under 23s. Bit less vulnerable to things like moves. Probably not a guy that's likely to go to Saudi Arabia. Hope I don't eat my words on some of this stuff. And also, if he moves to another top 5 league, not much potential step up. Scores very well for Dortmund already. Koki Saito we've discussed. Curtis Jones came on to form at the end of the season. Big Virgil van Dijk. So probably have a wee look first and foremost, I think, at Champion here, just to mix it up a wee bit. One thing I have done is try to build my Liverpool collection out. So had obviously had Trent here, held him for a while, and then I've been sort of building that up a wee bit. Virgil was a guy I picked up as well, sort of building on that defensive stack. Kelleher's a guy I bought ages ago as well. I actually won Alisson for the newer season version, but I decided to swap him for the older one just to get that sort of collection synergy and stuff there. Again, if you're kind of new to this, if you have guys from the same season, then the points all add up and then you get extra percentages in the tournaments. So as long as I don't list any of these guys for 90 days, after 90 days, everybody here will get an extra 3%. So it's nothing compared to You'll Never Walk Alone, the big maniac with his 15% collection and stuff. Andy Robertson added in recently. Curtis Jones I thought was an interesting one. I'd added him in just before his form proved, so that was lucky timing wise. And Mo Salah, again, I had bought the current season card, but I swapped it for the older one, so it just made a bit more sense to have collection synergy there. So we'll go in and we'll have a wee look at Champion. Just to mix it up a wee bit. What's Challenger? Pressing the wrong buttons. Champion Europe Rare. So yeah, we'll ignore the actual fixtures here because it's against Chelsea, although they have been pretty rotten recently. So there we go. So goalkeeper wise, obviously Bart Verbruggen, awesome move to Brighton. Might not be awesome obviously if he doesn't play and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, they're paying a lot of money for him. This guy's a top young goalkeeper, so I think no matter what, he will play eventually. Alisson, we've mentioned. Ivan Diouf is a great option, I think, for this season. Only really broke into the team last season, but obviously he's done pretty well. At one point, he was really up the top of the 23s, under 23s goalkeeper averages. Good shot stopper. And a wee bit of a shaky end to the season, but a young champion goalkeeper, good option. Ethan Horvath, I don't really know what his situation is. Obviously, he was out on loan, so I don't know whether he's going on loan again. I've held him for a while. And not much depth in here, but obviously Mvogo will now play for Lorient. I think he was back from injury, so here the obvious option would just be to roll out a Liverpool stack, but I just want to talk about Liverpool alone. Coming to the defender side of things, obviously it will be Trent. Absolutely just been brilliant. So moving from right back into this sort of centre midfield just seems to suit him. Obviously, all of his cards are defender cards, so you get the advantage of having a midfielder who scores from a clean sheet, which is just about as well as you can do, I would have guessed. Other options in here, Saliba, Virgil, obviously. Reece James is an interesting one. I love Reece James, but just gets injured too much. Just does get injured too much. So I don't have huge amounts of options in here. options. Sorry on the brain. So I'm going to highlight obviously Liverpool stack, but I want to talk about other guys obviously as well. Midfield wise, I do have a Martin Odegaard. Arsenal were terrific last season, so it's a shame they never followed it through, but there we go. Odegaard's a really strong scorer, as you can see he's up with the averages here. Dominic Szoboszlai, obviously that's a great signing for Liverpool, so him and McAllister are options in there. I think McAllister's an interesting one because he's been averaging pretty high, but he was a wee bit more of a main man for Brighton, so people would expect that if you go to Liverpool, then he would score better. I don't know if it will work out like that or not. I mean, obviously, Brighton actually finished above Liverpool in the league, so, there's that, but yeah, we'll see how he does, but I think that the Liverpool midfield will be a lot stronger. It's just that McAllister might not be somebody who's going to be taking set pieces, etc. Just to do something different, to fire in James Maddison. So yeah, really good signing for Spurs. A guy who averages really well. Try to think who else really takes set pieces and stuff there. So I think probably he could get that as well. And if Kane stays, then him and Kane could be a really really potent partnership there. Striker wise, so Mo Salah, obviously, if we're running a stack, would be kind of obvious one. What else do I need to say about Mo Salah? Everybody will know him. His averages are really high, gets lots of goals and assists. Excellent player. Ryan Cherky, we'll see if he stays or not. Obviously, a lot of talk of him potentially moving on. Probably come back to him a wee bit more in terms of under 23s. Doku as well. Guiri, some really nice options. Gabriel Martinelli. Rodrigo, just going to fire him in. Obviously, this isn't really a stack that's going to be quite good together, but might be something in playing specific weekends. So I think Rodrigo's a guy who'll really benefit from Benzema going. So obviously Real Madrid, I think ideally would want in Mbappe, right? But whether or not they're going to get him just now, I really don't know. So I just thought I'd highlight him. It's quite interesting. And then you've got different options here, whether or not maybe I want to go with a defensive stack. So you say, Chelsea have been rotten, and you go with Virgil in terms of defensive stack, but then you 3 defensive players. So if Liverpool concede a goal, then that's not really going to work. So you've got to be quite confident. It's quite a good game for a defensive side of things. Or if you think otherwise, then you go with somebody like obviously Mo Salah. I don't have many other brilliant options here in terms of champion. Again, if we maybe flip this on and go to the Champion Rare Pro, which is an insanely tough competition to play in, but good fun, I suppose, and really good prizes. Obviously, if you manage to pick some up, then that will throw in some sort of super rare options and stuff there as well. So again, you'll see from the averages here that a lot of the cards I have are rares, which are better scorers. So you can play 3. Well, actually, you could just play 5 rares if you want, but whether or not that's going to win a lot when you're running into guys with Mbappe super rares and all that sort of stuff, it's a different matter. John Stones, could throw in there to mix in the stack. Emerson Royale, probably not so good. Canale is a guy I really like. Just a few injuries last season and just never really worked out. Wes Fofana, obviously hoping he nails down a place. Axel Disasi is an interesting one because he would, scoring pretty average towards the end of the season, but linked with a lot of good moves and stuff as well. Branko van den Boomen was a guy I bought here to play in Champion, but then he's moved on. And I've also got a Max Arnold super rare. So I've got some options in connection with putting that in, but we've been talking about that a wee bit now, so probably just going to come on to under 23 Rare Pro and under 23 because that's really a sort of area that people love to play. I think really quite a popular area. So in terms of my own options, obviously there's a lot of interesting ones here. So Bart Verbruggen we've talked about. I don't think I'll be selecting him too early on unless I'm confident he's going to play. Yevan Diouf is definitely a guy I play a lot of in the under 23s. So obviously I could play the super rare here, but more likely I would play a rare and play a super rare in one of the other divisions just so that I can use the super rare also in the under 23 super rare division. Nico Mantle sparked a bit of debate on Twitter recently. People thinking that Schlager will be number 1 with Cohen going, which is fair enough. When Schlager signed, then they did say that they were bringing him in to mentor a younger goalkeeper. I don't think they were bringing him in to mentor Cohen. He doesn't need mentored. He's ready to play in a Champions League. So with them selling the other guy to Tyrrell, can't remember his name, it's another young guy they had as well, and they sold him on too. So yeah, it seems to be between Manto and Schlager, and we'll see who wins the Twitter debate. Tobias Lawal is a guy I've owned for a while, and they've said that he's going to get his chance after Schlager's left, and also he started every friendly, so an interesting option. Pandur here, I'm not sure whether or not he completed that move or not. I'll need to double check on that, but a guy I like, but obviously hampered a wee bit by playing with a team who concede a bit too much. Other interesting options down here, Gavin Bazunu is a really interesting one. So you obviously move down a league in the Championship, you play a lot of games right as well. So he's a guy who could be quite interesting in connection with utility. And then again, I've got loads of options because I'm a maniac. But I think I'm not confident that Verbruggen gets in straight away. I do think he'll be the goalkeeper, obviously, for Brighton, but Steele might start the season. So this selection, I think I'll go for Yvan Diouf. Defensive wise, this is where it gets obviously quite interesting as well. So a few guys to sort of highlight here. Micah Wisden was quite interesting. He broke in at Sparta last season, and he's not really that expensive, but his averages have been pretty good. So he's maybe a guy as an outside shout. I'm not saying he's going to be one of the top defenders or whatever in under 23s this season, but worth having a think about. Obviously here, like I'd probably be rolling out like Schlotterbeck or whatever, but it's just useful to talk about other guys. Kamil Piatkowski is quite interesting as well because he went to Ghent and I thought he'd done very well there as well, so in terms of playing there, he scored very well, but Salzburger brought him back and it doesn't look at the moment as if they're selling him, so maybe he steps in if like Omar Saleh goes, as Omar Saleh, Saleh. So yeah, he's an interesting one. Formos Mendy I talked about earlier, a really heavy scorer to be honest, and a guy that's quite cheap. The limited and everything's always very cheap, but there might be a move in the offing for him in terms of moving up. In terms of going down through the options, I do have a lot of options here. Don't know where Schlotterbeck actually is here. I don't know whether it's just for some reason the Bundesliga's not got a game that weekend, but in here probably I would go for Schlotterbeck, but we'll put in Kamil Piatkowski just as a discussion point. Into the midfield now, so obviously I've got like Matt O'Reilly mid cards here, so I could play them. Phil Foden's an interesting one this season, with some guys potentially leaving Man City. Does he become a bit more prominent? So Tokamare going, and I don't think Foden necessarily plays on the right hand side, but in connection with game time, if people go, gives them more of a chance. Lee Kang, an interesting move to PSG, and if he plays, I think he will score really well. So that's one to look out for this season. Before I select Koksu, which I'm going to do, Mats Wiefer is an interesting one. So he moved to Feyenoord, was playing in there with Orkin Koksu and scored very well last season, and he got his debut for Holland as well. So again, a guy to look out for. Orkin Koksu, that's what he says in the tin, right? He's been one of the most prolific under 23 scorers for the last couple of seasons. It's a good move to a dominant SO5 team. Let's see how it works out with maybe being offset pieces, etc. But he's a guy I'm really going to be focusing on, obviously, this season. Coming into the forward line, so loads of different options here. One thing I would say is before we come into the forward side is I'll probably end there because in the extra position, even though it's more European focus, I will probably put in like Rico Puig until the MLS at least ends. So in the 23 there pro, I always try and max out and have like obviously two good super rares in there because the scoring is really hot. But one of the other reasons the scoring is really hot is because it's a division with really good prizes, division people like to play. It's a division people prioritise. So some really good options here. Obviously, Koki Saito I talked about earlier, and I've got his forward card, and I think he'll be a sneaky good one this season again. The only shame is Sparta never qualified for Europe, so midweek's obviously a wee bit different. Ryan Cherky, very interesting. I mean, if he stays at Lyon, I just thought he was excellent at the under-21 tournament. I just loved watching him. So I really hope that wherever he is, he's playing. Other options here like Sekou Koita, if he could stay fit, be really good. We mentioned earlier, obviously, Rodrigo at Real Madrid, he'll benefit from Benzema going. Lyle Abada, I've not talked about him much Celtic-wise, but, he could come back into prominence under Rodgers. So a really good young player. Wasn't getting a lot of game time last season, more of an impact player, but, change of manager. Guiri, obviously a guy I really love. It wouldn't be a McBride video unless I just put Guiri in, right? So, I don't know. I just love him. Just such a good player. And again, another year of under-23s, He's been around for a long time, but I think he's just obviously developing. And there might be games, honestly, where I'll just want to run a double attack and play Doku as well. Obviously, I don't have at the moment. Guiri super rare. Way back 3 years ago when he was moving from Lyon, no super rares had been minted. And he moved from Lyon to Nice, and I already had the Lyon card, but then they never minted anymore. So obviously I might look to pick up a sneaky Guiri super rare at some point this season, but he won't be cheap. But again, a player I really love. So yeah, that's interesting discussion regarding the 23s. Obviously guys in here, like Haaland and stuff. I don't own a rare Haaland. I do own a limited Haaland, but if you can afford guys like that, then magic. I know a lot of guys have to maybe be a bit more creative. In terms of other players, Maxim de Kuiper obviously has been absolutely superb. Then he's gone back to Bruges, so if he gets a game, then he could be a real leading player in there as well. But I do think obviously it's going to be really interesting with Joey Veerman has aged out and Coxu was one of the other sort of main selections, so I'm pretty pleased to have his super rare. But there will be somebody who'll come through. There will be somebody who'll come through maybe at a Genk, like a Bilal El Kanous, or we've seen previous seasons with Mike Trezor been there, and somebody will come out the woodwork somewhere, and somebody will have a smashing season. I haven't thought too much about those types of guys, but we will do some more videos which are more aimed towards tips separately. So, connection with the rare side, obviously a heavy challenger focus here as well in terms of what I play myself. So I'm going to come back to Challenger Europe Rare, and I'm going to just try and sort of select something out with what I would select for Celtic. So, because we talk about Celtic all the time. So first thing to point out here is I'm quite Celtic focused, so I don't always have amazing options outside Celtic. For example, if I was going to go and buy somebody, then maybe like an Unerstal or whatever at 20s, as a quality goalkeeper in his 30s, but never seems to let people down. Always seems to be involved in winning stuff. I've got Matvei Safanov. Don't know what's happening with him. Seems to have kind of fallen out with Krasnodar, so we'll see what happens from that point of view. Tobias Lowell, obviously an option in there. Mantle, if Mantle were to get in at Salzburg, then obviously he'll be very valuable because they tend to run under 23 defenders, and then you can play a defender and the goalkeeper stack, which is a wee bit rare actually in under 23s. But since we're just sort of doing a selection here, obviously if he's playing, Safanov is a good scorer. I've got other guys in here, like obviously Douglas Santos. I mean, if you can get yourself a Douglas Santos card, then absolutely superb. What a player the guy is, outstanding. I talked about him earlier, Tom Hay, really, really good scorer. Look at these average. I mean, what an underrated player he is. Right up there average-wise with anyone in my gallery, basically. Coming up to the forward positions, Wikoki Saito. Don't have huge depth here. It's quite Celtic focused, so basically just everyone at Celtic. So I don't tend to say I really want a Tadic or whatever, because a lot of times I'm just running a stack and putting Furuhashi in. So might not be optimal, but I'm a maniac, obviously. Sekou Koita is an interesting one. He's had too many injuries, but seems to be doing pretty well at Salzburg now. So he's an interesting guy to throw in there. And then obviously one of the men of the season, Ivanišek. At Dynamo, I think they'll be pretty good this season. So obviously they're losing Livakovic, Nevestic, who's the goalkeeper, I think will do very well. They brought in Bernauer, I think, who's the defender who was scoring very well, and obviously if Sotalo goes, he'll step in. Bataraina, what a player, absolutely superb young player. So, guys like that I may well look to add, but not in terms of just the pure Challenger Europe Rare, because that's a division where I'll be playing the Pro or I'll be playing the Rare and just putting Celtic guys in, basically, In terms of what would be the optimal Rare Pro in terms of Challenger Europe, so obviously at this point I'm having to assume that Joe Hart stays, because if we do buy a goalkeeper, I don't know who we would buy. I've got an option of putting in Nick Olage in there, so that's quite interesting. So I guess I could run the defensive stack in there with Ryans, obviously Joe Hart, and then, for me, obviously, I've got guys like Vickers, super rare. I could mix it up in here as well, could then, maybe move in an Orkin Coxu or guys like that, or maybe even Branko van der Boomen, let's pick something a bit different. Talked about Branko a lot, but yeah, I think he'll be excellent at Ajax. I really do. Kyle go Furuhashi, and then obviously could just go quite mad putting Douglas Santos. So some really cool options here. I think this is where my gallery kind of comes into its own a wee bit. I'm blessed with having really good options, and it is very fortunate to be in that position. So it's taken me 3 years to build up my gallery, and I do win a lot, and part of that is I do get to select in these sort of divisions from the top guys. Obviously, earlier I talked about the different divisions and different strategies and things as well, So we're talking about limited in a minute, and with limited, obviously XP is important and peak scores and everything's important as well. In these divisions, it's quite hard to get some of the top super rares. So, if you're going to buy somebody or if you're going to move up or whatever, you're going to spend a lot of money, you've got to be really certain with that buy that, they're going to really perform. So, and sometimes it's better just to wait until like September or whatever and just make sure they've not fecked off to Saudi or whatever, even if it costs you an extra 100 or 200 more or whatever on the super rare, you've got to make a decision based on your own gallery. Certainly we're coming into limited in a minute, and if you do feel as if you've got quite a few good limited stacks out, then by all means plan to move up to rare. Rare goalkeepers are not cheap, etc. But if you move up to cap 240 rare and you can turn over that $50 of Ethereum, that really helps enormously in terms of building out your gallery. Under 23 is limited, so we'll come back to that. Because I always love playing under 23s. I know I talk about it a lot. I know also there's cap modes and everything here, but we're talking about my sort of favourite selections for this season. So from that point of view, we'll probably do caps as a different subject altogether. In terms of highest average scoring limited cards, obviously Messi's now buggered off. Trent, not under 23s anymore. But a great option. Nevestic, I highlighted earlier, I think he'll be really good for Dynamo. You see, obviously, I've planned ahead a bit there, and that's the value of buying the backup. So he was 23 at that point, 10 quid, and I'll guarantee you he will not be 10 quid by the time you watch this video. So as a wee exercise, go and look up how much he is. I know he'll be more than a tenner, I'm confident of that. Harry Kane, obviously a great option. Whether or not he moves to Bayern, obviously, it's going to be a great SO5 option. Kevin De Bruyne, superb. Going to miss the start of the season though. Quite a few Celtic cards here. Joey Veerman. Arda Güler, yeah, why do I not buy a rare, honestly? Why do I not buy a rare? But I've got a limited at least, and he looks like an absolutely superb player. And come down here, obviously, a lot of Celtic guys and stuff as well. So that was just a quick highlight in terms of who I own. And we'll have a wee look at sort of optimal under 23 lineup, I think. So in terms of under 23 goalkeepers, I do have a few options. Obviously, Donnarumma's timed out now, so that's quite interesting. There'll be some crossover here as well, connection with the previous selections. So I think I was going to plug him again. Ivan Diouf, is a guy I really like, and I think he's a solid buy. He's dropped a bit because of the end of season form, so he doesn't have one of these insane last 15s and people are going mad for him, and He's got the full year under 23s ahead. He's a champion goalkeeper. Plays for a team that goes in good runs of clean sheets and stuff, so it's pretty interesting. Sergio Gomez, I really wish he was actually sort of playing for Man City because he was brilliant in that under 21s, but if his defender card drops, definitely one to have a think about picking up. Reece James, definitely a guy I'll use a lot of this season if he's fit. So now with no Trent stuff in there, I do think I'll be using him quite a lot. Obviously, I've got Schlotterbeck as well, so he would be an obvious selection. The only problem with Reece James really is just his injuries, Before he started getting his injuries, he was averaging about 60, which is really good in the EPL, so he's a real interesting proposition, obviously, in there. Got a lot of obviously popular guys here. Obviously, I own a Saka, which is just a great card to own. I just love Saka. Maybe as a Scotsman, I shouldn't really admit that, but he's just such a good player. Absolutely love him. I'm going to pick out an unusual one for you here. Duqueiroz. So this guy's really cheap, so I guess this is a tip, right? So I think this guy's only like under a tenner, and Wendell hasn't travelled back to Zenit. So this guy's still under 23. There's Corinthians cards on there. His average there looks terrible, right? But that's playing with Corinthians, and Zenit do bash people up. So I'm not saying he's going to be a top under 23 card, but I think he is top value in there, So I think that's somebody who's sort of affordable that people could maybe have a think about picking up in terms of mids. We've gone on to forwards here, even though I've tried to flick it back on. So who will be the best sort of forwards? Obviously Haaland, Vinicius, Martinelli's an interesting one. He was really coming onto form. It's kind of hard to see past like Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo, honestly. Like Vinicius was just so good. Like just look at his average, 61, and I think he's even capable of improving from that, and just such a good player. So if there's something I'd maybe want to improve in my gallery, having a rare Vinicius would be really cool. Obviously a significant investment as well. I maybe didn't need him as much last season because of some Jota options who've now, I'm not going to talk about it. So he's away. Sherky, interesting option. Skov Olsen's a really interesting one. He really was scoring really highly, but I think he might want away from Bruges. I don't know. I've seen some reports on that. Orkin Koksu, I talked about him earlier. The guys like this in terms of availability. So yeah, I've really got some fun options and stuff in there for sure. I love playing the under 23s as well. I'm going to go into Champion now, because obviously that's probably one of the most popular in terms of divisions, Champion Europe Limited. So the advantage I've got in here, because I've went a bit mad and bought like a sort of whole Man City collection, is obviously I can play the full stack in here, So Ederson, I can pick pretty much anybody in there, or I can mix in a differential. So I could play Trent as a differential, or I could play John Stones. Ruben Diaz has been really, really good, So just go quite strong, go like Ruben Diaz. Kevin De Bruyne needs no real introduction, in all honesty. Haaland, and then, because I've completed the collection, look at these bonuses here, So 15%, the 5% season bonus will drop off when the new cards come. But when the new cards come, unless somebody buys the whole collection in a week or whatever, I've already got an advantage on them at the 10%. So, that's the way the season bonus and everything works. It does take people a wee bit of time, obviously, to scale people up. Or I could mix in here, obviously, the guys like Harry Kane, awesome options, Odegaard. Camavinga was so good for Real Madrid last season, but that's going to be a headache with all the different options that they've got in midfield, unless he cements the role left back, which I don't think he likes. PSG, obviously, I've got like Marquinhos and Donnarumma and stuff, so that could be an option. And you can't see him on here. I've actually got a Neymar limited as well, but that's because he's not coming up in terms of the averages, So some really cool options in there. People often ask me, why do I bother still playing limited? Well, it's fun, right? It is fun. It's not much fun seeing the prices drop and all that type of stuff, but I get stuff from playing limited. I get extra lineups in. I get to build up some soul coins, maybe do some stuff with that. Who knows what they're going to offer? I get to win some stuff. I get engagement. I get to go and get guys for 100, 150 quid that sometimes I can't even afford gallery wise in a rare or a super rare or whatever. So it's just such a big investment. So it's all that type of stuff really as well. We've already talked about a kind of optimal Celtic stack at Challenger level, cap 240, etc. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's a different topic picking somebody for those types of competitions, and Challenger we've already covered in under 23s. So yeah, I think we'll probably wrap it up there, guys, because I've been rabbiting on now for nearly an hour. It's a monster episode that we've went through, but hopefully that helps people. Obviously, I've talked about who I'm going to be running in terms of my own gallery. I've also talked about other guys I think will be good SO5 players. If you see this video and you fancy having a discussion about it, put a comment in the video. No other ongoing giveaways just now until August, but I've highlighted that in other videos. So obviously you go along to Twitter. There's a giveaway post that's pinned at the top of Twitter now. So if you like and retweet that, then you can get in for the giveaway for winning limited cards in August. So thanks very much for listening anyway, guys. I'm open to any feedback regarding this stuff. I know this is a very long video and I've went through things in terms of the different scarcities. If you've liked it, then any comments would be appreciated. If you think it's shite, then then keep it to yourself. No, I'm looking. But if you think there's any way we can improve things, then let me know. And I'm going to, for the next couple of videos, go into maybe picking out some cards under £20, which might be a bit more affordable. So going in more towards tips. And I think I'm going to have a look at collections at some point as well, because that's something I really enjoy on Sorare in terms of collections, and just talk about how that works with collection bonuses, and obviously how that helps your SO5 in terms of stacking or not stacking. So anyway, we've got to the end of the video. Thanks very much if you've hung with me this long. Hope you're having a good one.